Welcome to Architrave Gaming. I'm the Archmaster. So good of you to drop by. Alright, today we are talking about the history, the lore, the actual timeline of events of one of the worlds of Absalon, the main world, the ColonnArch setting. Alright, so, Brahm, this one is for you. I've been planning this for like a week, but talking to you gave me extra incentive. It's like, you know what, I've got to actually share this. Alright, so, the way that the ages and eras and epochs of the ColonnArch setting work, at least for now, is that there are four major epochs of the world. You have the birth epoch, the childhood epoch, the youth epoch, and the adulthood epoch. It's just what I call it. And technically the conception category is where I keep all of the stuff for like the actual the seeds of all the ideas. Nothing really concrete yet. Anyway, each epoch, generally, at least the first three epochs, have 4 ages, which means for the first 3 epochs, you have 12 ages of the world. The 4th epoch just has 1 age. It is the 13th age, right? That's kind of separate, special, later stuff, but like the main world itself has 12 ages. The first 4 of those ages in the birth epoch are not set in the material plane. It's set in the what I call the first world, or Envitreo. It is set in a world that hasn't fully been made real yet. It is still a dream world. All right, so I'm going to give you a real basic creation rundown. So, in order to make a world, you really only need yin and yang. You just have to have those 2 principles. And once you have those 2 principles, that's everything. Everything else comes from that, right? Here's how. You start out like, so what the principle of yin-yang actually is that everything has an opposite, an equal and opposite. They're equal and they're opposite. Everything. As soon as you accept that as true, the entire world comes into being. So, we start out the world. It's like, all right, we have yin-yang and that's it. We just have the principle that everything has an equal and opposite, and that's it. We have nothing else. All right, how does the world come into being? What do we start with? Well, we start with nothing. We have nothing left. It's just a void. Okay, we have nothing. We have a void, so that means there has to be an equal and opposite thing. That means we have to have something. There has to be some kind of thing. Well, what thing is there? Something. It's not really defined. It's just a thing. All right. I call that Ethereum. It's just this gray, undefined, wispy, it's not matter yet, it's not element, it's not anything in particular, it's just thing. It's more like potential. It's like this thing could be anything, but it currently isn't anything, it's just the potential form behind everything, right? It's the proto-matter, but again, it's not matter, it's not element, it's nothing in particular, right? I just envision it as this gray, wispy, ethereal wisp, like a cloud, right? So that's Ethereum. So if we know that, well, we have nothing, so therefore we have to have something, that means we have the thing called the void, which is all of non-existence. Everything that doesn't exist is the void, right? Well, that's not really within the universe that we're talking about, so we don't really need to talk about the void, right? So within the universe that we're talking about, the entire thing exists now, because we have non-existence, so therefore we have to have existence, because everything has an equal and opposite. So now we have existence. We have Ethereum. Well, you take the simple principle that, in yin-yang everything has an opposite. You take that 2, and what's the opposite of those 2? Well, you have to have an opposing 2. You have to have 4. And so the yin-yang, the Ethereum, will start to automatically separate into positive and negative, higher and lower, and then separate again into neighbors. So you get 4. And you essentially have the 4 elements that just kind of pop up because they kind of have to. Like, there's no other way around it. This is the logical train, right? I explained this better in my notes, but you're just going to have to go with my sloppy explanation right now. And so, you have that. You have, this... I'm not going to go through every single detail, but you essentially have a logical progression how everything is made simply because yin-yang makes it. Like, it has to be made. If we have one element, one matter, one substance, there has to be an opposite of that, and then another opposite, and then another opposite, right? You have to it's just a cascade. It keeps going, right? So, essentially, what happens in the world is that you have all this gray Ethereum, and it's just in whatever is existence, right? And then part of the Ethereum on the edges turns into stars, turns into thought, essentially, right? And those stars, that thought, essentially acts like a blueprint. And it influences the Ethereum and tells the Ethereum what to be, what to turn into. It says, you could be this, you could be that, right? And so when the light of the star, when the plane of thought is technically a plane beyond Ethereum, right? It's not really like a physical place you can walk to. It's only a place you can think to, right? So the plane of thought influences our world through the stars. The stars are essentially little portals through the plane of thought. So the light of the star holds thoughts within it, right? Like the light, the thought is in the light. So when these stars shine down and their light shines down onto the Ethereum, that thought mixes with the potential of Ethereum, where it's just sitting there like, we could be anything. What should we be? And it's given a blueprint. It's given a seed. And it says, this is what you can be, right? That thought, whatever it is, swords, war, chairs, people, bodies, etc., like tons of thoughts, because there are tons of stars. They all combine and start to shape the Ethereum and mold it. And as I said, it turns into the 4 elements and all sorts of things, right? And so from there springs the first ethereal beings that actually have enough light bouncing around, like the light shines on various, bits of Ethereum, and the bits of Ethereum just so happen to be next to each other. And so that light bounces around in there, and there's enough light, and therefore enough thoughts within that bit of Ethereum that it starts to think. Like it's light, it is thought, it's going to think. And so it starts to be, self-aware. And like if these self-awareness thoughts are the ones shining on this piece of Ethereum, so it starts to think. It's like, all right, there's a world around me. What's going on, right? And so the first ethereal beings, I kind of call them ethereal elves sometimes, although they're not really elves at all. They're the proto race. This is the very first thing. They aren't even really real yet. They're just thought in Ethereum. But thought kind of makes a person-ish. So it's like it's pretty much just souls. Like they didn't have bodies yet. It's essentially just souls being made from the Ethereum and the light shining, and boom, that's your soul, right? So these first ethereal beings are like, great, we're just ethereal soul beings wandering around in this ethereal plane. It's like, yeah, technically the ethereal plane was the first one. It wasn't called that because there were no other planes to compare it to, so you didn't need to call it the ethereal plane, but that's what it was. So they're just wandering around this ethereal plane and bathing in the light of stars and whatnot, and a few of them, they make some interesting choices. They start to differentiate between themselves in who they were and which stars they wanted to follow. They started to experiment with who and what they were. So some would look at the more positive stars, right? Like you have all the different thoughts, right? You have the stars above and the stars below, because you have yin yang, positive, negative, high, low. So you have, the positive stars, positive thoughts, and then the negative stars, right? And so those would all be shining on these ethereal beings. So some would be more positively influenced and some would be more negatively influenced, right? And so they would start to differentiate and come in contrast with each other and separate and clash and separate, right? This isn't like, the wars between heaven and hell. Like this is way earlier than that. This is just when they're both like, I'm golden and you're black or red, or I'm, like platinum or radiant colored and you're, shadowy, like stuff like that, where it's like, we're different, we're opposites. That's interesting. Stuff like that. So, So, as this happens, they start to separate and get more of a form, right? They don't have matter yet, but as the stars are shining, they are creating the elements, right? And so various pockets of Ethereum just turns into, that's fire over there, and there's a chunk of Earth just floating in the Ethereum there. And the Ethereum is still like turning into an element, and then back into Ethereum, and then into a different element and whatnot, and they're mixing and whatnot. And then at the same time, all the various concepts of all of existence are just in the stars, and they're just shining down. So all that to say, the world just starts to get formed and molded by starlight shining on Ethereum, and even the starlight itself came from like the edges of Ethereum turning into stars. So it's very mystical. So anyway, you have that. These ethereal beings eventually become, a bit later, fiends and celestials. They choose positivity, negativity as like staunch things, right? There are different types of celestials and different types of fiends, but not all of them. Some did that. And my world, like I played Diablo 3 and Immortal, and I liked the whole heaven versus hell, angels versus devils and whatnot. It was kind of cool, but as much as I like that idea and want to put it in my world, it just doesn't fit as much. Like, yes, there are fiends and celestials, but there's no giant big cosmos-wide conflict like in D&D Forgotten Realms with the Blood War. I don't have that. It just doesn't seem to fit in the world. Like, if you're gonna have something like that where you have this big cosmic conflict, it seems to me like it should be central, like the way Diablo does it. Like, this is the thing that life revolves around. It's devils and angels fighting. The way Forgotten Realms does it, it's like, oh yeah, there's this giant conflict of fiends and celestials. No one really cares for the most part. We just fight dragons. It's like, no. If that exists, it should be paramount, right? So I don't make it. I don't have this giant war between them. It's like they were these different proto-ethereal beings that were influenced, and well, I'll talk about how they get separated later. But there's no cosmic war. Like in a different layer of the world, in another one of my worlds, there is a cosmic war, and the whole thing revolves around it like Diablo, but not in the main layer. Okay, so fast forward a bit. You have elves, or ethereal beings, start to take on an actual form, right? Not so much a body yet, but it's more like, I have fingers or whatnot, but it's just like gray, blue, wispy ethereum, and you can see like the light that I have captured, all the different thoughts just like flowing through my body like neurons essentially. And so I'm this glowing ethereal form, and I'm the proto, ethereal being. And you have a bunch of these, and they start to clump together. A few of them do. They're like, hey, we all have similar, ideals, similar thoughts, similar, starlight in our bodies. We're all going to be a group, and we're going to be a team here, and we're going to be a team there, right? And those who devoted themselves to like the most positive stuff, again, celestials. Those who devoted themselves to the negative stuff were fiends and whatnot. But then there were those who were in the middle, and they're like, we just kind of want to be neutral, right? They didn't choose, or they weren't shined on by just one side of the stars. It was more of a neutral thing. So they had a little more of a free will, and they're like, we don't choose a strong side on this whole alignment thing. Like we're kind of in the middle. And so these people had a few different choices. One option, which I really like, is they said, hey, instead of just clumping together in a group, what if we actually combine ourselves? Okay? This is some of my favorite lore. I know this video is probably like, it's gonna be an hour long. Who knows? But this is some of my favorite lore. Okay. They say, we see a bunch of ethereal beings who are neutral like us, like we're all neutral. Some of them just remain individuals. But what if the 10 of us, or the 20 or 100, whoever, what if we combine ourselves? Like, we don't really have bodies yet. We just have souls. What if we all just kind of merge into each other and be one being? They're like, that's a cool idea. Let's try it. And so they do. And they just merge their bodies until it's one big, enormous body. And it's this proto-ethereal giant. And they just walk around, and it's like, you can say that, this varies per ethereal giant. Where, in one hand they have, multiple personalities, or just a few of them rose to the top and they're in control, or all of their personalities, if they were similar enough, they merged into one. So they, it's just one consciousness now. That's up to you as the GM, the world builder. You can say, here's an ethereal giant that has multiple personalities. Here's one that is singular, right? That's up to you. But they start to merge and whatnot. And it gets so much cooler when when the material plane comes around and what that means for them. But for now, you have individual ethereal beings and then merged ethereal giant beings. All right. After a while, this by the way, this is just one age, one of 13 ages. Okay, who knows how many videos I'll have on this topic, because these are just going to be so long. So then you essentially get to let's see, that was the Era of Stars. Era of Fables is essentially the creation of the Ether Elves, the Giants. Almost missed this. I'm so glad I actually clicked this thing. The Era of Fables is essentially, yes, when you have the Ether Elves that actually become Ether Elves, and then, the Ether Giants and whatnot. And then you have what are essentially my great old ones, where there are some of these elves who are like either conspiratorially or accidentally or who knows what, because they're experimenting in a strange world, right? They essentially become great old ones, or just eldritch beings. If you have played the really, really, really good video game Dread Delusion on Steam, great game. If you played it, then you've seen their gods, right? Peguth is one of them. And it's essentially like an Aboleth from D&D on steroids. I really like that idea. I like the Aboleth, this like great old one, not quite normal form, super ancient Cthulhu kind of being. Like I like all that weird eldritch stuff. In moderation, in really tiny doses, right? Because if you make a Call of Cthulhu tabletop RPG that's all about the eldritch, then you make the eldritch mundane and normal. It's not eldritch anymore, right? I like the eldritch, but it has to be super tiny and has to be inserted into an otherwise fantasy world, or else it doesn't feel eldritch, right? So yes, I like the eldritch in a really small quantity so that it stays eldritch. Anyway, this is where you get some of them that either mutate or combine or, capture other ether beings and, like, essentially consume them. Like, I'll take them into myself and they're mutated. It's a lot of different variations, right? You as the GM can make up some. I fully intend to make up, like, a dozen of these, like, weird eldritch, half great old one, half eldritch patron, half Aboleth, half Dread Delusion. Like, mix all those ideas into one, new concept. So anyway, you have those, right? You have your ether elves, ether giants, great old ones, and yeah. So then you have the era of coalescence, and names are all subject to change. This is the emergence of all the elements and the ideals. This is where the fiends and celestials start to actually differentiate and start to, sometimes clash, sometimes fight each other, but there's no land yet. There are no swords, right? They're not like fighting the way you would traditionally think. It's more of like energy standoffs, like you're the wrong energy, that kind of clash. Ethereal elves started to differentiate more, becoming more like people. Some chose niche roles, like I will just be this thing, I will have this personality, I will serve this function, right? All sorts of variation of the original ethereal beings and what they chose to do by exposing themselves to certain stars and not others. And some just wandered around and accidentally got exposed to whatever, right? Like there's so much variety that you can put in these, right? I don't feel the need to define what every single elf did. You as like setting a game in this world, it's like, yeah, the ethereal elves, this one did that and this one did that. It's totally up to you. There's so much freedom. So anyway, but very importantly, this is essentially the emergence of the elements. This is when the ethereal elves weren't so much walking around in just an ethereal gray mist fog. The elements started to really appear in earnest. So you have like large swaths of earth, as in actual air is made, right? And they all kind of start on the four different corners of the universe, and they all start to like create and take over their own space until they all meet in the middle. And where all four elements meet in the middle is what you call material. This is not where the material plane was made, because it's not separated yet, because technically, you can like step over the board of the new matter that was made, and now you're in the plane of Earth, right? Like elemental Earth versus material Earth, because material is that which is made of the combination of the four elements. So they're not in different planes yet. It's all one big world. It's just more like the material continent or the material island versus the elemental Earth continent or island, right? They're all next to each other. So they all start to meet in the middle and meet to form material, and then they just keep, infinitely expanding because the stars just keep shining, so the Ethereum just keeps turning into just more of the elements and whatnot, until you essentially have this big, essentially formless, I'm just going to say it's round like a planet for now, this big round planet of all the different elements and their combinations, so your para-elements and quasi-elements and quasi-para-elements and quasi-elements and all that. And you also have all the different stars and the different ideals. Actually, I should explain what those are. So ideals are essentially my version of alignment. So each ideal is essentially a certain thought, but it's a special thought. It is a powerful thought. There are 8 ideals because there are 8 major stars. From most positive to least positive, most negative, you have harmony, grace, justice, liberty, tyranny, what's it called? It's not disorder, but it's something like that. It's not the word chaos either. It's not strife. Whatever. It's the disorder one. That's so weird. I forgot that. And then enmity, and then strife, right? Harmony. Yeah, right. All the way down. And so these are the main ideals. These are where you get your fiends and celestials. Only these ideals, conceptually, were strong enough to turn you into a fiend or a celestial. All the other ideals and like thoughts and whatnot, they aren't called ideals. All the other thoughts and concepts that were similar were weaker concepts. In like the stars were smaller, the light was weaker, right? It wasn't enough to fully change them into the original fiends and celestials, right? They were more like constellations of smaller stars around the big one. Each of the 8 big ones were, harmony, grace, justice, etc. And so those big ones turned people into fiends and celestials, and those are my 8 alignments. I don't call it alignment, I call it devotion to an ideal. But there's a 9th one. Not really called neutrality, because there's no cosmic war of alignment, so it's not called neutral. It's the one that is essentially Ethereum, that has not had any star shine on it yet. It is neutral Ethereum. It's essentially the essence of free will. Because if you take Ethereum, which is, by the way, what souls are made of, if you take Ethereum and you shine certain light on it, then that soul is, that Ethereum is changed with the ideal of the concepts and thought that you shine on. So if you shine justice, which is a silver light, from a silver star, and it shines in and it makes that Ethereum glow silver and whatnot, that's someone's soul, right? Like if you're an ethereal elf and you're made of Ethereum and the silver star shines on you and all your Ethereum changes to silver, you cannot help but pursue justice now. You are a being of justice, and that's why you have justice celestials. He sprouts wings and swords and whatnot. He's like, I am now a being of justice because this light shone on me, right? And not that happens instantly overnight or anything. Like, you have to be exposed to it for a while. But still, that's the idea. So, like, the more devoted you are, the more you color your soul with the light of one of these stars, the less free will you have. You have assigned yourself, like, I will pursue this ideal, this thought. I will let this thought consume me and be in charge, and I will serve this, right? And that this is why fiends are irredeemably evil, or like enmity, strife, etc. We collectively call that evil. And why fiends are irrevocably good, it's because they have this light in them, and unless you can remove that light from their soul, which, by the way, their whole body is just soul. They don't really have bodies yet. They're just beings of soul. Unless you can remove that light from them, then that's who they are, right? And of course, that can be done, but that's a very different process. Anyway, so the 9th alignment is essentially fate. And in my world, fate doesn't mean a decision that someone made for you. You get to decide your own fate. Your fate is essentially your own chosen fate, right? There are essentially 3 words for fate. Doom is the negative one. Your negative fate is doom. Destiny is your positive fate. And fate is just neutral fate. It's what you decide, right? So you have your 9 ideals, 9 things that you can pursue in your life and choose and expose your soul to. And fate is one of them where you're like, I'm not going to submit to any other ideals. I'm not going to expose myself to any of their lights or invite it into my soul. I'm going to choose my own destiny and pursue what I want. That is having the neutral alignment. That is having fate as your ideal. So, anyway, all the elements merge and they create material. You have actual raw individual elements moving through the planet, as if they were giant purple worms, eating through everything. The elements are moving through. It's this giant maelstrom of the elements just interacting with each other. Then the stars, always shining and essentially acting like directors, because it's the light, it's the blueprint. It tells everything else how to act. And so it's shining on, it's like a few stars appear in a constellation. There's one that says violence and sword and pain, right? So that's a certain constellation we call war, right? So when the war constellation shines down on Earth and fire, then Earth and fire will do, and they'll start to fight each other, right? So the stars themselves essentially command everything there and tell it what to do, tell it how to act, right? That's what the stars do. They are the directors of the show. They are the blueprint that tells everything what to be and how to be. So you start to get what is essentially the first world, and you have the meaning of the elements and ideals from start to finish. still in chaotic mingling. The last of the Ethereum to be changed. All right, so after, like, as all this is being done, most raw Ethereum is actually being turned into an element or an ideal or, you know, something, one thing or another. So at the end of this age, at the end of all 4 of these eras within the age, the last bit of Ethereum to be converted is what we call the core, and it is not converted. It is essentially protected in, like, the very center of, like, the whole world, so the starlight can't get to it, so it remains neutral. It remains just raw gray Ethereum, and everything else around it has been turned into something else. All right. This video is probably too long as it is. I'm going to end it there. The next video will be about the next age. This was the age of myth. We went through the era of stars, era of fables, era of coalescence, and this one was the era of legends. By the way, the ethereal beings who are now, like, especially the neutral ones, they accomplish much, they become legends. This is where you have all sorts of history and whatnot of, you know, who these first original ethereal soul beings were and what they did. And then, you know, the core being established, and that's like a major milestone. It's like, hey, the world has stopped being generated and created. Now it's made. And it's like all of the planes of existence that will ever be are all just crammed into one big planet, just one big plane. And so now, what are we going to do with what we have, right? That's a major milestone. So we go from the age of myth to the age of sovereignty. This is where the different elementals and the fiends and celestials and all sorts of things clash and decide their places and whatnot. Find out which element is sovereign, which ideal is sovereign, and all that stuff. We'll get to that in the next video. But thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Feed the algorithm. We have a Discord channel, and I have Patreon, which I would very much appreciate getting more money for through. You can tell after you've been making a video for, what is it now, 27 minutes, that you lose your voice. Thank you for watching and supporting the channel, and y'all have a good day. God bless.